Chosen one, this message didn't find you by accident. It's divine timing. God led you here for a reason. There are no coincidences in the life of the chosen. Every battle, every loss, every late-night tear, and every unanswered prayer, it all had purpose. You've been through things you haven't even spoken out loud. Not because you're weak, but because you were chosen to carry a weight others wouldn't survive. But here's what you need to know. The test was yours alone, but the glory will not be. Heaven saw it. Heaven kept record, and now heaven will reward it. You didn't suffer in vain. You didn't break for nothing. You didn't survive the fire just to go back to the ashes. This message is your reminder, your resurrection notice, your confirmation that what you carried alone, you will be rewarded for in front of many. Let's break it down, chapter by chapter. Before we dive deep, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Because this isn't just a message, it's a confirmation from heaven itself. If this resonates in your spirit, drop 77 in the comments right now. That number isn't random, it's a divine signal, a sacred frequency that marks you as awakened, aligned, and ready to receive what you suffered in silence for. Understand this. Not everyone will make it to the end of this message. Only those truly chosen will have the spiritual capacity to absorb what's hidden in these words, and those who do, they'll gain clarity, strength, and the revelation they've been praying for. This isn't something you hear once and move on. It's a living truth, one that will hit deeper each time you return to it. Each listen will unlock a new key, a new piece of the blueprint, a fresh glimpse into the glory God is about to release over your life. You carried the test alone, but you won't carry the reward alone. Let's go. Chapter 1. You fought battles in secret. Chosen one, let's start here, because this is where most people get it wrong. They look at you today and they assume you've had it easy. They see the calm in your presence, the wisdom in your words, the strength in your silence. But what they don't know is the storm you had to survive just to stand. Nobody saw the war behind your smile. They didn't hear the prayers whispered through tears when the room was dark and your heart was heavy. They didn't witness the spiritual warfare that hit you night after night, attacks in your mind, in your sleep, in your emotions. They didn't know you had to walk into work, into church, into family events, smiling, functioning, pretending, while fighting for your soul behind the scenes. You didn't have an audience, you didn't have applause, you didn't have people laying hands on you every day or prophesying your victory. All you had was God. And sometimes even He felt silent. You wondered if heaven even noticed. You asked questions you didn't dare say out loud. God, why me? Why does it feel like I'm the only one going through this? Why does it seem like I'm forgotten? But here's the truth. You were never forgotten. You were being trusted. Heaven was never blind to your pain. God was never distant from your struggle. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. You weren't being abandoned. You were being anointed. God gives His toughest assignments to His most trusted vessels, not the loudest, not the most famous, not the most followed, but the most faithful. And that's you. He had to take you through that fire privately. He had to refine you in secret, because what you carry is too holy to be mishandled by public hands too soon. The vision, the calling, the anointing on your life, it required a private process. One that felt like isolation, but was actually intimate preparation. People didn't see you when you were crying, but still sowing. They didn't see you when you were doubting, but still obeying. They didn't see you when you were breaking, but still trusting. But God saw it all. Heaven kept score. The angels stood witness. And now, chosen one, heaven is preparing to honor what you endured alone. The rewards coming to your life aren't just blessings, they're justice. They are heaven's response to the nights you kept going when you could have quit. This is your season of divine recompense. What was hidden in suffering will be revealed in glory. And every silent battle you fought, it built a legacy only heaven could see. Until now. Chapter 2. The process was personal, chosen. 1. Let's not sugarcoat it. What you went through was deep, it was heavy, it was lonely, and above all, it was personal. Not in the way people talk about personal growth or self-improvement. This process was a soul-level reconstruction, a divine intervention designed specifically for you. This wasn't a season of self-help. This was a season of soul help. This wasn't just about changing your habits. It was about rewriting your history. This wasn't about building a brand or chasing a dream. It was about becoming the vessel God ordained before you ever had a name. Your test wasn't something anyone else could walk you through. Not your friends, not your family, not even your pastor. This wasn't a group assignment. This was a one-on-one appointment between you and God. He had to isolate you because your healing couldn't be outsourced. Your breaking couldn't be comforted away. Your process couldn't be diluted with distractions. You probably tried to explain it to people, but they didn't get it. They thought you were just going through a phase. They told you to pray about it and move on. They said, God wouldn't let you suffer like that unless you did something wrong. But deep down, even when you were confused, something in your spirit knew. This wasn't punishment, it was preparation. It was preservation. It was purpose in disguise. What you carried was too holy to be developed in public. So God hid you. Not because you were unworthy, but because you were too worthy to be exposed too early. He hid you in heartbreak. He hid you in obscurity. He hid you in financial struggle, in confusion, in silence, in isolation, not to hurt you, but to heal you completely. Because this wasn't just about your healing, it was about your whole bloodline. Let that sink in. This process was about legacy. The addiction that ran through your family for generations, it had to end with you. The poverty mindset, the fear, the silence, the brokenness, it had to stop somewhere. God said, this is the one. This is the one who will break it. This is the one who will carry my name, not just in their mouth, but in their DNA. So he let certain doors slam in your face, not because you weren't ready, but because what was behind those doors couldn't handle your anointing. He let certain people betray you, not because they were strong, but because they were weak under pressure, and you couldn't take fragile loyalty into a firm calling. He allowed the stripping, the emotional, financial, relational, spiritual stripping, so that when he rebuilds you, nothing will be able to say they made you but God. He had to get you alone so you could finally hear him clearly, so you could unlearn the noise, the traditions, the expectations, so you could remember who you really are, apart from the pain, apart from the applause, apart from the pressure. You had to be emptied completely, because he couldn't pour fresh oil into a vessel still full of yesterday's trauma and lies. So yes, chosen one, it was personal, and yes, it hurt. But it had to be personal, because your calling is prophetic. You weren't just being prepared for promotion. You were being forged for generational impact. You weren't just being tested for your testimony. You were being qualified to carry a mantle. Think about it. God didn't bring you this far to leave you. He didn't put you through fire just to watch you burn. He walked you through it, step by step, to make sure that when you come out pure, strong, and undeniably marked by his hand. And let me tell you this truth. Nobody may ever understand what you went through, but when they see what you're about to walk into, they'll know. This wasn't man-made. This wasn't luck. This was God-built. This was grace-defined. This was purpose-formed in the fire of a deeply personal process. Chosen one, it hurts when the people you love the most stay silent in your rise. It stings when the ones you supported with everything you had couldn't even muster a simple, "I'm proud of you." Some of them saw you changing, healing, growing, and instead of clapping, they got quiet. Instead of celebrating you, they got distant. Some walked away, some downplayed your progress, some watched from the sidelines with crossed arms and hardened hearts. Not because you were doing something wrong, but because you were doing something right. Because your rise was a mirror to their complacency. Because your growth made them uncomfortable in the places they refused to grow. You didn't get the likes, you didn't get the reposts, you didn't go viral, you didn't trend, but you still kept showing up. You still kept building, you still kept praying, believing, stretching, and becoming, without applause, without validation, and without the need to be seen. Why? Because deep in your soul, you knew this wasn't about recognition. This was about obedience. You weren't doing this for claps, you were doing it for the kingdom. You weren't performing for people, you were positioning yourself for purpose. And while the crowd scrolled past your testimony, heaven stood still. The angels took note. The spirit realm recorded every step you took in faith, every tear you cried in silence, every battle you fought without backup. Chosen one, you need to know this. Heaven keeps score differently. People look at highlight reels. Heaven looks at heart posture. They see moments. God sees consistency. You weren't overlooked. You were being watched by the Most High. You weren't forgotten. You were being counted as faithful. When they didn't repost your victory, when they didn't show up for your breakthrough, when they talked about your past louder than they acknowledged your present progress, God saw it all. He saw you remain kind when you wanted to be cold. He saw you serve others while secretly bleeding. He saw you sow seeds even when your own field felt dry. He saw you give, forgive, obey, and endure when nobody else did. That's why the blessing that's coming to you can't be blocked by man, because man didn't build it, so man can't break it. What God is about to release isn't based on popularity. It's based on purity. It's based on faithfulness in the unseen. And hear this loud and clear. He is not unjust to forget your labor of love. That time you served without thanks. He saw it. That midnight prayer when your heart was shattered, he heard it. That seed you planted in faith when you didn't even have enough for yourself, he recorded it. Now the reward is coming, but not to stroke your ego. It's coming to reflect his glory. Because when they ask how you did it, you'll say, I didn't. God did. And when they wonder why it happened for you, you'll respond, because I didn't stop. When they didn't clap, I kept walking. When no one was watching, I kept going. So be still, chosen one. The reward is catching up to your quiet faithfulness. The elevation is chasing your obedience. And every place they overlooked you, heaven is about to overtake you. The crowd may have missed it, but heaven kept score. And now, it's your time to reap in public what you sowed in silence. Chapter 4. You didn't break, you were built. It felt like you were breaking, didn't it? Like everything around you was collapsing. Like you were drowning under the weight of pressure, disappointment, and delay. Like God had gone silent, right when you needed him most. You prayed, but the answers didn't come fast enough. You hoped, but the doors didn't open the way you expected. You cried out, but the pain didn't immediately stop. You kept asking yourself, God, where are you in all of this? But here's the truth. You couldn't see then. You weren't breaking. You were being built. Built slowly. Built silently. Built deeply. What felt like destruction was actually divine construction. He was strengthening your faith beyond surface-level belief. He was stretching your patience beyond comfort. He was deepening your trust in ways no blessing alone could teach you, because blessings don't build you, battles do, and God wasn't punishing you. He was preparing you for weight, because what he's about to place on your life, anointing, responsibility, influence, legacy, requires foundation. So he had to dig deep. He had to let some things collapse. He had to remove what wasn't meant to go with you. He had to strip you of false security so you could be secured in him. You thought you were breaking because it was painful, but pain is often the process of becoming. You were being built in resilience. Every time you got up when you wanted to give up, heaven was watching. You were being built in obedience. Every time you followed his voice without seeing the outcome, heaven was recording it. You were being built in spiritual authority. Not the loud kind the world brags about, the quiet kind that hell recognizes without you saying a word. While others were focused on visibility, you were focused on alignment. While others were obsessed with being seen, you were being refined in secret. They posted their process. You lived through yours. And now, when you walk into a room, you don't need to announce yourself. Your scars speak. Your presence shifts the atmosphere. Because when you've been built by God, the evidence is undeniable. Don't be ashamed of the tears. Don't hide the seasons you barely survived. Because those dark moments, they're proof of your becoming. They're the blueprints of your breakthrough. And those scars, they're not signs of weakness. They're evidence of warfare and victory. You didn't just survive. You were shaped. You didn't just hold on. You were fortified. You didn't just make it through. You became someone unshakable. And now, when people look at you, they may only see strength. But God knows what it cost to carry this kind of peace, what it took to walk with this kind of clarity, what had to die in you so this version of you could live. You didn't break. You didn't fold. You didn't disappear. You were built. Built for impact. Built for legacy. Built for spiritual authority that only comes from the fire. And now that the building is done, watch how God puts His glory on display through you. Chapter 5. This is why the attacks were so heavy. Have you ever sat back and asked yourself, why me? Why did it feel like everything was going wrong at the same time? Why did the weight feel unbearable? Why were you always the one catching strays, facing battles that didn't match your season, enduring losses that came out of nowhere? The attacks weren't random. They weren't just life being hard. They weren't bad luck or bad timing. It was spiritual. It was intentional. It was targeted. Because what lives inside of you is a threat to darkness. What you carry shakes foundations. Your very presence disrupts atmospheres and breaks cycles. Your prayers are loaded. Your words carry weight. Your obedience echoes in the spirit realm louder than you realize, and the enemy knew that. He saw glimpses of your potential long before you did. He saw that calling on your life even when you doubted it. He saw that once you healed, once you woke up, once you aligned, hell would lose ground. So he launched the attacks early, to confuse you before clarity could anchor you, to distract you before discipline could shape you, to wound you before wisdom could grow in you, to shut you down before you ever stepped into your divine role. That's why the warfare was so heavy. That's why it came in waves. One hit after another, loss after loss, setback after setback, and some of the worst attacks weren't even physical. They were internal, mental, emotional, spiritual, the kind of battles that had no audience, the kind that made you question everything, your worth, your purpose, your voice, your future. The kind that made you want to disappear quietly so no one would know how deep you were hurting. But here's the truth. You didn't fold. You may have bent, but you didn't break. You may have cried, but you kept going. You may have doubted, but you didn't disconnect from the call. Because chosen ones are built different. Even tired, you kept walking. Even afraid, you kept trusting. Even misunderstood, you stayed faithful. Even when you didn't feel strong, you showed up with supernatural strength. That strength didn't come from you, it came from God. It came from the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead, now dwelling in you, guiding you, guarding you, growing you. And all that pressure you felt, all that weight that tried to crush you, it was never meant to destroy you. It was shaping you. It was equipping you. It was proving what you're made of and who you belong to. Because pressure doesn't come where there's nothing valuable. The enemy doesn't waste resources on the average. He goes after the anointed. He targets the trailblazers. He harasses the ones carrying keys that unlock freedom for others. The warfare was confirmation. The opposition was proof. The heaviness wasn't punishment. It was preparation. And now the shift is here. Something has changed in you. Your discernment is sharper. Your spirit is stronger. Your identity is rooted. You're not walking with the same posture you had when this started. Now you know who you are. Now you know what you carry. Now you understand why the battle was so brutal, because your breakthrough is just that big. And what's coming can't be stopped, because the very attacks that were sent to silence you only made you louder. The very pain that was sent to break you only built your foundation deeper. The very storms that tried to drown you only taught you how to walk on water. Chapter 6. The glory is shared in heaven. You carried the weight on earth, chosen one, but heaven will carry the glory. You cried in silence, warred in secret, and walked in obedience when no one was clapping. But just because the world didn't see it doesn't mean heaven didn't. Every tear was a seed. Every prayer was a blueprint. Every sacrifice was recorded. Heaven was not just watching, it was investing, guiding, waiting for the right moment to release what has always been yours. This is bigger than just surviving. This is bigger than a testimony for social media. This is about eternal fruit, eternal impact, eternal legacy. What you pushed through, what you endured, what you overcame, it sent ripples through realms you can't even see. It wasn't in vain, none of it. The sleepless nights, the betrayals, the heartbreaks, the isolation, the disappointments. It all built something sacred. You thought you were alone, but heaven was standing guard. You thought you were losing time, but God was redeeming every second. Understand this. Earth saw pain, but heaven saw power. Earth saw delays, but heaven saw discipline. Earth saw silence, but heaven heard thunder. Because in the spirit realm, your obedience made noise, your consistency in the dark, your faith in the fire, your worship through the weeping. It moved heaven. This was never about earthly fame, not about being popular, not about being praised. This is about what lasts when time stops, about what lives on after you're gone, about souls touched, destinies awakened, generations shifted. Because you didn't quit, your yes to God became someone else's lifeline. Your breakthrough became a blueprint for others to follow. Your story became evidence that God is still in the business of restoring, elevating, and using ordinary people to do extraordinary things. That's legacy, that's purpose, that's eternal fruit. And in heaven, there is a celebration, not just for your victory, but for every person connected to your obedience. The angels rejoice. The cloud of witnesses, the ancestors, the saints who came before you, the ones who prayed and didn't live to see the fulfillment, they're watching and they are rejoicing, because you're the answered prayer, you're the continuation of a divine story, you're the one who carried what others had to pass on. You didn't just survive for yourself, you survived for them too. Every time you chose faith over fear, heaven saw it. Every time you kept walking when your legs were trembling, heaven recorded it. Every time you forgave, obeyed, sacrificed, worshipped, loved, gave, built, and trusted, heaven was marking it all down. And now the glory belongs to God, but the celebration, that's shared. Because heaven celebrates victory with those who endured. And God doesn't forget the labor of the faithful. He doesn't overlook the quiet builders. He doesn't ignore the unseen warriors. He rewards, he restores, he honors. Well done, good and faithful servant. Not perfect, but faithful. Not flawless, but consistent. Not loud, but true. You didn't give up. You didn't let go. And now heaven is rejoicing over what was birthed through your brokenness. Chapter 7. Now walk in what you won. Now that the storm is clearing, now that the dust is settling, now that you've survived the test and made it through the fire, it's time to walk like you've passed it. No more living in survival mode. No more replaying the pain like it still owns you. No more waiting for others to recognize the new version of you. You don't need their permission to rise. You don't need their applause to move. You don't need another confirmation, because you are the confirmation. The evidence is in your endurance. The proof is in your persistence. The testimony is in your transformation. Walk in your authority because you've been given dominion. Walk in your healing because those wounds are now weapons. Walk in your clarity because confusion had its season, and that season is over. Walk in your anointing, because what's on your life was never meant to blend in. It was meant to break barriers. Yes, the process was painful. Yes, the wilderness was long. Yes, there were days you questioned if you'd ever come out on the other side. But you made it. And now heaven is saying, don't shrink. Don't water yourself down to fit into spaces God already told you you've outgrown. Don't apologize for surviving what others couldn't see. Don't hide your power because it makes people uncomfortable. You've already been approved by the Most High. You've already been endorsed by the one who matters. You've already been marked by fire, and that mark is your mantle. This is the time to stand tall, to speak boldly, to build without fear, to lead with vision, to love with strength, to walk in the fullness of your assignment. Because from this point forward, what you build will not just reflect your journey, it will reflect His glory. Your testimony isn't just survival, it's strategy. Your life is no longer about proving anything to people. It's about manifesting everything God deposited in you before you were even born. You were tested in the dark. Now you lead in the light. You were crushed in secret. Now you rise with substance. You were broken down to be built on a solid foundation, and now nothing can shake it. You passed the test, and not just any test, a test meant for your destiny. A test you had to take alone so God could trust you with influence, authority, and legacy. So don't tiptoe into this next chapter. Walk with fire, move with purpose, declare the promise. Heaven is backing you. The same angels that surrounded you in the storm are now clearing the path ahead. Don't just survive this season, own it. You didn't come this far to go back. You didn't endure all of that to settle for average. You didn't carry the weight of generations just to lay it down at the feet of fear. This is the moment you walk in what you won. This is the season you build what only you can build. This is the call to become what you are always becoming. This is the reminder. The test was yours alone, but the glory is shared in heaven.